In the bustling city of Chicago, life often felt like a constant rush of flashing lights, crowded train rides, and endless conversations in coffee shops where people tried to make sense of relationships. Among them was Daniel, a 28-year-old marketing professional who always believed he understood women well. He thought that reading body language, interpreting texts, and following conversations carefully was enough to keep him ahead of the game. But as life often teaches, assumptions can sometimes be the biggest traps. His story begins when he meets Emily, a confident, ambitious, and witty woman who lived just a few blocks away in Lincoln Park. Emily was the kind of woman who carried herself with grace, wore confidence like an invisible crown, and had a way of making people feel both curious and slightly challenged. When Daniel first met her at a friend's art exhibit downtown, he was struck not only by her beauty but by the mysterious energy she carried. She laughed with ease, spoke with conviction, and seemed to hold secrets behind every sentence. That night sparked a journey for Daniel, one that revealed how women sometimes play subtle mind games, not out of malice, but as a way of testing, protecting, or understanding the people they let into their lives. The first time Daniel realized he was in a game was over text messages. Emily had a habit of replying late, sometimes after hours, and when she did, the responses were brief. At first, Daniel thought she wasn't interested, but when he saw her in person, she was warm and engaging. This contrast left him confused. It was the first mind game, testing patience and interest. Emily wanted to see if Daniel would get frustrated and give up, or if he would remain steady without showing signs of insecurity. What Daniel didn't know was that Emily, like many women, had her guard up because of past experiences. She had learned that men who rushed, pressured, or demanded constant attention often weren't looking for real depth. Her strategy was simple. See who could handle silence without falling apart. Daniel, though tempted to double text or ask why she didn't reply, chose instead to remain calm and mirror her pace. He reminded himself that consistency and confidence often spoke louder than desperation. The second game appeared during their third meeting at a cozy coffee shop near the Chicago River. Emily suddenly shifted topics in their conversation, moving from fun and light-hearted banter about weekend plans to a sharp question. So, what do you actually want in the next 5 years? It caught Daniel off guard. He had expected casual talk, not a deep life interrogation. This was the game of mixed signals, jumping between lightness and seriousness, forcing the other person to reveal authenticity under pressure. Daniel, instead of dodging, decided to be honest. He explained that he wanted to grow his career but also build meaningful relationships along the way. Emily studied him carefully, almost as though she was searching for cracks in his composure. It wasn't about the exact answer he gave, it was about how he handled the unexpected. That was her way of seeing if he could stay grounded when the mood shifted suddenly. The third game surfaced in a playful manner. Emily had agreed to meet him for dinner, but when Daniel suggested a restaurant, she said she wasn't sure and asked him to decide. After he chose an Italian spot, she teasingly said, "Oh, that's nice, but I was actually craving sushi." Daniel chuckled but realized this was another subtle test, the mind game of decision-making. Many women, consciously or not, want to see if a man can confidently take the lead while still considering her preferences. It wasn't about the sushi or pasta. It was about whether Daniel could make a choice without falling into frustration when challenged. He smiled, told her, "All right, sushi it is, but next time I'm choosing," and Emily laughed, appreciating his playful but decisive energy. The fourth game came disguised as comparison. During one of their walks along Lake Michigan, Emily casually mentioned a story about her male coworker who had achieved something impressive. She phrased it in a way that left Daniel wondering if she was subtly comparing him. This was the challenge of competition, another mind game women sometimes play to see how a man reacts when another person is brought into the picture. Would he grow insecure, defensive, or jealous? Or would he stay confident in who he was without needing to prove himself immediately? Daniel listened, nodded, and congratulated her coworker's success without letting it shake his self-worth. Emily smiled knowingly. She had her answer. Confidence wasn't just about what Daniel said, but about the calmness he carried when placed in a moment that could trigger insecurity. The fifth and perhaps most complex game came later, after weeks of knowing each other. Emily invited Daniel to a rooftop gathering at a mutual friend's apartment. Throughout the evening, she gave him moments of full attention but then drifted away into conversations with others, laughing and chatting with different people. Daniel felt a tug of frustration, wondering if she was ignoring him on purpose. This was the game of attention shift. Women sometimes play it not to be manipulative, but to see if the man they are with respects her independence and social energy, rather than trying to cling to her every move. Daniel chose not to hover or demand attention. Instead, he enjoyed his own conversations, trusted the connection they shared, and gave her the freedom to be herself. Later that night, Emily returned to him, smiling warmly as if to say, "You passed." Through these experiences, Daniel learned that the so-called mind games were not really games of cruelty but layers of understanding. Each one was a way for Emily to test qualities that mattered to her: patience, authenticity, decisiveness, confidence, and trust. And while it was sometimes frustrating, Daniel realized that these moments built a stronger connection because he didn't break under pressure. He stood steady, showing her that he was not only interested in her but capable of handling the subtleties of relationships. Over time, their bond deepened, and Daniel stopped seeing these interactions as games. Instead, he saw them as lessons, reminders that relationships are not about winning or losing, but about growing into someone who can understand and respect the other person's perspective. For Emily, it was never about tricking him. It was about protecting herself and ensuring that whoever entered her life was strong enough to handle both her warmth and her fire. For Daniel, the experience was transformative. He realized that the real game was not about outsmarting someone, but about learning patience, respect, and self-control. Months later, as they sat together at that same Chicago coffee shop where Emily once surprised him with a deep question, she leaned in and said softly, "You know, most people don't get past those little tests." Daniel smiled, realizing that what began as a confusing journey had turned into something genuine. He replied, "I wasn't trying to play. I was just trying to be real." Emily nodded, her eyes softening. In that moment, all the games faded, leaving only trust, understanding, and the beginning of something far more meaningful.